few months ago, I remember driving down the road thinking, how am I going to both work full time and start teaching my children at home all the things that a second grader and a kindergartner are meant to be learning? Suddenly, I was struck by the realization that I have no skills to either begin figuring out where my children are in their trajectory for second grade and kindergarten, or what to expect in terms of what they should be learning next and how I was going to deliver said content. Now you can imagine scrambling around. What I did was that I went full blown into creating LGHJ Academy with scheduled hour after hour of session of math and science and art. And let's be honest, I really excelled at the art lesson. But that lasted all of about 3 days when it occurred to me that this is not a thing. This is not a thing. And so as a mother of two, as an entrepreneur, as the host of this show, I find myself asking, is school still a thing? Because I really can't wait for it to go back into whatever the next session is going to look like. Today, to help me answer these questions, and perhaps if you are at home having some similar experiences and similar questions, we are joined by Dr. Daria Willis. Good morning.
Good morning, Lindsay. It's great to be here.
Daria, I mean, you're the president of Everett Community College, and we're going to get into that. Before we start pummeling you with all of our problems and all of our questions, I want to take a minute to talk about your own journey through the, school system. You've had this amazing, I would call it rise, because, you have moved right up to this role as president very quickly. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me, I love when you talk about being the band geek. What was that experience like in school?
Yeah, if you ever seen the movie, What American Pie, like this one time at band camp. So I don't know if that's appropriate, but I was always that kid that went to band camp. Not the extra stuff that you see in the movie, but I was the band geek. My mom sent me to Florida A&M University's band camp in Tallahassee every year.
Wow.
A week-long experience. I went to Clark Atlanta University's band camp every year. I played trombone in high school, and my trajectory, I was going to be a high school band director. I was going to have my own marching band, symphonic band, and my life was going to be in the high school, making up band routines. That's what I wanted to do.
Which is not an easy task for anybody out there listening. I mean, that's a lot of choreography going on at once, plus all the musicality. As a dancer long ago, we looked at the kids in band and were just often blown away by all of the skills. They are not given enough credit as being the triple threat. That is a triple threat, the kid in camp.
They're athletes. If you ask me, I say band students that are in marching band and all, they are true athletes to go through the training, what it takes to put on a show.
I would like to play the cymbals. I feel like
that's a hard one.
It's very hard. It's very hard. And then they're very like nimble, and I think that's a missed opportunity.
All that stuff here, and then they're down here, and those cymbals are not light. They are heavy.
Yeah. All right, everybody, if you don't see me next week, I'm learning how to play the cymbals. So you said you wanted to be a high school band leader. How did you end up changing your direction?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I was a early admit to college. So I left high school after my 11th grade year because I only had like one class left in 12th grade. I was the nerd, I guess, if you want to say it that way. I got all my work done, did band and whatever. Then I went to Florida A&M. I did my studies, but there was this one issue with me and the band director. He said that I didn't attend a game. And if y'all know anything about HBCU bands, there's no such thing as a freshman not attending a game. I'll just leave it at that. Any number of things. Use your imagination on what could have happened to a freshman back in the early 2000s before bullying and all that became an issue. He didn't attend a game. So I lost my band scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah, because of it. And I had to, my mom rather had to pay the rest of my tuition so that I could get my transcript and take it back to my high school and get my high school diploma.
Wow.
So after that, it put a really bad taste in my mouth. I still love music, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to continue being a music major. And I decided to major in African-American history. And I was the one who wanted to be the Angela Davis. I was Miss Black Power. I was going to do all that stuff. And I sat down with one of my professors and he said, so what are you going to do with African-American history? And I'm at a Black college. So he's like, seriously, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, well, I'm going to study my people and I'm going to do this. And he's like, yeah, maybe not. So
this is clearly before the African-American Museum in DC. So there you go, Professor.
Thank you. But I still majored in it. And I got my degrees in history, really enjoy it because I think now as a president, it's helped me to understand how to work with people. But then I got my master's in history and went on and did my PhD at Florida State University, which is literally right across the train tracks. It's across the street from FAMU. So it's not like I had to do anything major to get there. I had a professor there who got me a scholarship to do my PhD. And then the 2008 recession hit. And I was a part-time faculty member at Tallahassee Community College in Florida A&M. And I didn't have anything else. It was just me and my daughter. I had my daughter at 19 years old. So I was a single parent trying to make it. And I went online and must have applied to like 30 something full-time faculty positions. And only one school called me back in Texas.
Wow.
And that's the job that I got. So I put all my little stuff in my little Kia Optima, I think that's what it was. And I drove from Tallahassee on, I think it was I-10, all the way across to Houston, stayed in an extended stay hotel until I bought my house. And I will tell people that from that point to now, it's been an amazing journey that happened very quickly. I took the opportunities that came to me. I progressed through the academic ranks from full-time faculty to faculty senate president, to department chair, to dean again, then to provost in New York, now to president in Washington. So I got my PhD at 26 and I became a president at 34. So I'm blessed and it's been an amazing journey. 3 kids later and a husband, and now in Washington State with volcanoes. So yeah, it's great.
Yes, yes. And I'm sure she's a Huskies fan, you know, for anybody listening so we can all claim her now. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is the experience of being a single mother in academia?
It's tough. It's not an easy experience. I remember being pregnant at FAMU in Tallahassee, Florida. So if any of y'all been to the South, in Tallahassee, Florida, in July or June, it is hot.
It's very hot.
It's iggy. It's a terrible experience. So pregnancy alone was just bad. But having a child and having to still get up and get your studies done, because in all honesty here, we're supposed to keep it real, right? I was the best student in high school. I graduated with 3.9 GPA. I was Miss on top of stuff. But one would have thought that my daddy was a preacher, because when I made it to college, like homegirl, I was partying. I was having myself a really good time. I was like, what? This is what college offers you? Yeah, let's do it. Right. So I had the lowest GPA and I was in the band. But when I had my daughter, something clicked in me because I looked at her and said, hey, I don't want her to ever look at me and say that I was nothing, that I was nobody, and that I didn't do anything with my life. So at that point, I, worked really hard to pull my grades up and graduate. But, I had to work. I had to take her to classes with me. I had to find childcare. There were days when babysitter lined up if I had an evening class and the babysitter called 20 minutes before I was walking out the door saying, hey, I'm not coming. I had to take the kid to class with me. I posted a picture of Lyric on Facebook. She's almost 16 now. And I'm still friends with a lot of my students back then. And they were like, oh, we remember Lyric because she handed out papers and she took my homework assignment. So she became like my little teaching assistant because she grew up literally in higher ed. But it was tough. So, but we're fortunate to be here.
One of the things we're going to get into in this episode is you write a lot about our opportunities to make changes. Even before the pandemic, you were writing about this, some of the opportunities we have to make changes to our education system and how we promote access. My question is, at that time, as you were going through that experience, were you already going, wow, this is not designed for me as a single mother to excel? I mean, what were the support structures that you were already realizing maybe were not designed to cater for a single mother moving quickly through her up to her doctorate and then to a postdoc?
Yeah, it wasn't until I was in my doctorate program that I really started thinking that way. I had a professor who once looked at me, a male professor, who looked at me and said, you're never going to be anything more than maybe an assistant or associate professor of history because you've got this kid and it's going to be hard for you to progress. And it was hurtful for him to say that. And what could I say? Because he was grading my papers and stuff, But it was at that point that I thought, okay, this system isn't built for me. It's not made for me. And I'm literally going to have to fight my way through it. And I was talking to someone yesterday and I recounted my first year as president. And I said, how amazing is it now that one of my platforms as president of Everett Community College is making this campus better for our student parents, because I know what it's like. And we're actively looking for grants and different things to improve their overall experience. But when I started the presidency this past July of last year, I was invited to Washington, D.C. to speak on student parents. And someone had just heard about this TED Talk that I had done and said, hey, we'd love for you to come and talk about your experience. And literally since then, it has really taken off and I think has had a positive impact, not only in our community, but across the nation. So I actively speak about, my experiences because the system is not made and built for student parents. Oftentimes we forget that we have, people that have babies and they don't wait until they're so-called married and whatever, that means. So we have to, if we say we're going to serve all students, we have to remember our student parents are part of that all students. And shame on us if we don't help them because they have children and those children are watching. And that can help in the cycle of poverty if we open our doors to those parents along with their kids and help them see that an education is, your right and it's here for you as well. So it was difficult going through, but it wasn't until I got to my doctorate degree that I really figured out that this system wasn't for me.
Wow. So you're a mother of three as well as the president of a college. What was your experience? All of a sudden, you've got a 16-year-old and a baby. And how old is your middle child?
He's 8.
He's 8, which I've got one of those too at home. What were those first couple of weeks like?
Oh, man.
Wait, let me give you a drink. I'll be right back. What?
Should have one next to me. If I could turn my camera around so you could see my room, that would basically tell you what those first weeks were like. It's chaotic is the best way I can describe it. I'm fortunate to have a great support system in my husband. He has always been there to take the kids and that kind of thing. But the realization, there's the realization that comes with it. You know, when you decide that you're going to be ambitious and you want to have a career, I had just had my youngest and now she's 21 months. But at the time we moved here, she was about 9, 10 months old. Mm. And I didn't have the same close experience with her that I had had with my other two. And so she preferred, and still does, prefers dad over me. And that was hurtful to me because I was like, well, shoot, is my career getting in the way of my bond with my kids? Yeah. But you know, you get over it and you move on, whatever. And you make it work the best way that you can. But you know, the kids would wait up for me. I remember the first couple of weeks when I started, I would get home late every day. And the kids would wait up for me and they'd be like, Mom, hey, we haven't seen you in like a year. And it's only been a day. I traveled a lot because, you know, conferences, meetings, those types of things. And you just have to learn how to do it where you don't hurt their feelings because they want you to be around more often. But it's hard and it's even much more difficult at home now. Mm-hmm. Before this episode, I had to kind of push my kids in a closet and threaten them and say, don't come in here because I'm working.
Let those kids out of that closet. Tell them Auntie Lindsay said, hello.
They're not in a closet. They were dead somewhere. he took them out. But yeah, it's, you know, and frequently I'll have the baby. She'll come and join me in a Zoom meeting. She has turned into my little president's assistant. So I know, I understand what it must feel like to be a student and having to do your studies at home and you have kids, you know, because I'm a president and I'm working from home and I've got my kids running around 24/7. So it's a different task and a different challenge than it was when I first started in the position.
Absolutely. I will tell everybody at home, I have met her assistant. And we had a wonderful talk. I am pretty sure when I was singing some children's song to her, that was also me booking a future meeting. So if you ever need to get in contact, don't be afraid to work through her assistant.
Yes, please. Do it.
20 months?
21.
Yes. So here's the big question. We're all waiting. Dun, 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 dun. Is school still a thing, Dr. Willis? Will they ever go back to the school? Please tell me.
What time? When are they going back? I think school is still a thing, yes. Will they go back in the fall? That remains to be seen. I have purposely, we're going to run a hybrid schedule at the college. So some classes will be face-to-face, and the majority will be online. But the challenge that we have is that we'll have people going back to work. And if the school buildings are not open, what happens to their children? And then how many parents have someone else in the household that's not working or works from home that can stay home and take care of the kids? You know, that support system isn't there. So I've often wondered, how can we change the system to where the schools come to the kids? We meet them at their level instead of us always expecting them to come to us. That's a challenging question, but you know, school, in my opinion, is still a thing and it's definitely needed. Especially if you are a person of color, you've got to have some type of an education to make it in society, to even have a seat at the table. So we need to figure this out for the generations to come, because this isn't the first time the country has had a pandemic. 1918, the Spanish flu, they figured it out. So we need to do the same thing. But it's more important, you know, in these times to give supports to the families that need it the most, because a lot of the issues that we saw before the pandemic have been exacerbated by COVID-19.
Yeah. I mean, you speak about our opportunities to start rethinking education as we look to design the next couple of years and moving forward. Can you talk about the opportunities that you think we have in embracing technology and how that is an opportunity to inform the next phase?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And it's one that I feel like my college is like, if she doesn't shut up talking about technology, oh my gosh. That's probably what they say about me, because yeah, every time I get an open platform, I say something about it. But so I'm gonna back up just a minute, and that'll help me to progress to answer your question. When the pandemic hit, we knew that there were students that didn't have access to laptops and Wi-Fi and internet. What we didn't know is that there were employees that didn't have access to a cell phone, to internet at home, to a laptop. So how can we say we're moving our services online, and yet our employees don't have what's necessary to deliver it from the comfort of their own homes?
Wow.
And so that to me was a really interesting dynamic, because I'm a millennial. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, I've had a cell phone in my hand since like 8th grade. I remember when my mama took me to T-Mobile to get it. I have the same phone number that I had in high school. So I can't imagine a world without some type of technological device. So for me to see that we have people who didn't have access to that, that was a come to Jesus moment for me as a president. So in this time, we know that things are going to happen. If it's not a pandemic, it's going to be something else in the next 50 years. How do we respond to that? And as a college, I'm challenging us to look at other modes of operation. Do we really have to deliver education sitting in a classroom environment for 50 minutes, 3 times a week to meet the course or student learning outcomes? Can we do this in a fully online program, or can we do this in a hybrid modality where students come in 1 week face-to-face and then do another part of the work online? We need to be a bit more flexible in the options that we have for students, because y'all live in Seattle. I'm saying y'all because I just got here like a year ago. And I got on I-5 one day and I was like, oh my God, because I got on at the wrong time. It was like 2:00. 30 coming from a meeting, and like there was just miles of traffic and I had nowhere to go. So the commute is an issue. And what does that do to our environment? What does that do to Mother Earth and all of that? So how do we slow that down? And so I've been asking this question to the college of, do we really need to be here Monday through Friday?
Wow.
Can we work a 4-10 schedule for the entire year? Doesn't that add to your health, wellness, and well-being? Because I don't know about you, but I actually enjoy being home working. Although there are days where I want to run out the house and get away from my kids and family, I have more time at home and more time for myself.
Yes.
And work-life balance is important. Nothing is worth losing, your family and who you are, not a job, a career, or anything. So if it's a technology issue, we need to answer that question and do it quickly. Because the babies of today, my 21-month-old, she has her own iPod Touch. She can get to YouTube Kids. She can find her little video. She can get on TikTok. And you know what, Lindsay, she did this the other day. That song, I'm a Savage, came on. And she went, I'm a savage. I went, oh my God. So she did a little hand routine. I said, oh, okay, she did it better than me. Yes. But what is education going to look like when my baby turns 18 years old? If we're still delivering it from a chalkboard or a whiteboard, we've got problems. And we need to get a little bit more progressive in what we're doing. And when the pandemic hit, it was amazing to see how many people who said what we couldn't do, we were able to do it and deliver it in an online or remote capacity overnight.
Yes, which I guess I want to name my bias here is my bias is that I often think of teachers or school boards or teachers unions as being the entity that is potentially holding us back from embracing more one child centric learning styles. But I've never considered this, and I really, if you're watching at home, if you're well, you are watching at home. So if you're watching on Facebook or if you're here live with us, I've never really considered, and light bulbs are going off, that perhaps our teachers do not even have the necessary tools to adapt in the ways that would be necessary to begin adapting our entire education model.
Mm.
And so that is just like blowing my mind. If this is blowing your mind at home, please drop us a comment. I just think in my own students that I was working with before the pandemic down in Tacoma, which I agree with you, that's an hour drive one way and an hour drive back for me. And then I know that many of my students in Tacoma were also commuter students. Learning about all of the extra time they are getting to just rest, to recover, by being able to take the commute out and add more time to living is actually enhancing their ability to learn and to grasp new information. And I like to say that I'm noticing that the questions are better. Even if they don't have the answers, the questions are better.
Mm-hmm.
As you think about, not just for your school and your students and your team, but also as we begin as a country to hopefully take this opportunity to rethink the future, one of the things that you really talk about is how we're going to have to delve into what does access really mean. Can you share a bit about that?
So for me, access is leveling the playing field. So I think about it, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up a Southern Baptist. And if you've ever been to Georgia, there is a Black Baptist church on every corner. Doesn't matter where you go. So anybody can walk in the church, whatever church you have, and sit down and take part in the service. But do they have what's really needed to understand and to get what they need out of it? So for me, access isn't just the ability to walk in a place and say that I am accepted or I'm here in this school and I have the opportunity. Yeah, you have the opportunity to learn, but access is so much more than that, just walking into a building. Having access is equalizing the playing field so that that child who walks in the school and is hungry. When I worked in Syracuse, it was a very poor population out there. And there were so many kids that walked in that elementary school and couldn't even start learning because they were hungry and had to go to the cafeteria, pick up their lunch or their breakfast, and they would sit in the class and eat their breakfast while the teacher is teaching. But that didn't help the students because they had missed probably the first hour of instruction because their mind is focused on what's in their plate. Or access is, I don't have internet access at home, so that when I have to do my homework or a computer or a laptop, or they don't offer Wi-Fi in the area that I live in, that I still can't get my work done. So to me, access is more about what are the basic human needs that we should be providing for every person, no matter who you are, where you come from, how much money you make, or what you look like.
Yes.
And everyone should have those basic tenets. And that creates the opportunity. So when they walk into that school or into that job or wherever they go, they can be just as successful as the next person. We've confused access with where everybody has the ability to walk in the door despite affirmative action or what everyone else. Yeah, that's true. Now we have the ability to all walk in, but do we have the tools necessary to really take hold of what access really means. And we still don't have that today. You know, students don't have internet access. Students don't have access to food. How many of our young kids in K-12 schools are living from one house to the next because they don't have access to a stable home environment? These are things that are basic tenets of what it means to be a human. And we need to change our viewpoint of what access means in order to give everyone an equal playing opportunity at the same, you know, at whatever goal they're trying to reach.
Yes, I think that is so powerful. Everybody should hashtag that today. Access is not just the ability to walk in the door. I remember reading a study recently that posited that approximately 20% of students in university are experiencing food insecurity. In our entire country, 20%. And you talk about this yourself in terms of having these conversations with your students and all of a sudden being reminded, you know, I'll let you speak to it, but being reminded these are just, you know, they're students, but they're also just young people who are dealing with all the things that come from their late teens and early 20s, dating and, you know, experiencing being out of the home for the first time. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I've talked to my students a lot, and they're so it's interesting. I have to check myself even when I'm dealing with my daughter because she's almost 16, and sometimes I'll be dismissive and say, "Oh, well, you don't know what life is all about because you haven't lived long enough to get there." But she's dealing with her own set of issues and trying to understand what her life really means and what she wants to be and who does she love and blah, blah, blah. So who am I as this so-called adult to step in and tell her what she does or doesn't know? And I hear this dismissive attitude a lot among administrators, teachers, principals, whoever, when it comes to their students, because we assume that just because you're a certain age, you haven't reached or haven't experienced anything. And if you have to deal with the loss of a loved one, or a boyfriend has just dumped you, or your car won't start, you caught a flat tire and then have to deal with school at the same time. And on top of all of that, you're hungry and the only thing you have to eat in your house is a cup of ramen noodles. That's not going to get you anywhere. And we have to work hard to fix that. So I try to take time I spend time a lot with our students on campus as much as I can, because I want to hear what's going on in their world. Because if there's something that we can do to help them overcome those challenges, it's a very real thing and we need to be there for them. We need more counseling services. Mental health is an issue. We need to increase our food pantry access. And I was just on the phone with someone last week saying, hey, I've got all these rooms in our residence halls. They're empty because of the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of students left when we moved online. But yet I still have a lot of students on our campus and around the college who are homeless. But I can't put them in a building because they don't have the money, and that's a gifting of public funds. So we've got an issue with our policies and the bureaucracy levels that keep us from doing the very progressive things that we could be doing to help other people, and especially our young people, because if we don't help them, then who else is going to take the reins when we're not here anymore, or when we go to retire and do whatever it is we're going to do in our retirement years? We need to be building them up. So I've had to check myself on that, and understanding that I was 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 at one point as well. You heard about me partying before, and all of my adolescent or young adult challenges really play a part in whether or not you can be successful. And we need to not be dismissive of that and help support those students.
Yeah. And I think to your point, it's not even just our older students, you know, having an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, also noticing the ways that they are trying to grapple with missing their friends or being home with one another in the same space hour after hour.
Mhm.
And then, you know, as we know in Seattle, sunny day can completely change your life for the moment, and then a rainy day, you're stuck indoors. And also noticing how our littlest little humans are trying to grapple with some very big topics while trying to navigate being 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, I think it applies across all of our students that are home right now, having a little bit more grace for them as we are also trying to practice a bit more grace for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter, the baby, yesterday, it was raining and a little chilly. It's July. I heard it's called January, but I said, okay, y'all, it's July in Washington. What's up?
One more day. It'll change on July 4th. One more day.
She kept pointing to the door, the front door, and I opened the door. She had on a onesie and a diaper, no shoes, no socks. She ran out that door and she stood there. And I stood in the house and she was like, no. And she can say no. She was like, no. And I had to go get her and she was kicking and screaming to come back in. But
Yeah.
I thought, she's sick of sitting in this house all day. Let's get her outside. And, you know, we would go out when it was sunny and those types of things. But just to your point, the little ones, the 8-year-olds, 12, I mean, whatever, they're all experiencing a crisis at this moment. And we need to pay attention and be a bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
They have their own challenges as well.
I want to know, in your opinion, and I'm really kind of asking for your support with the decision that I've made. Just putting that out there.
Okay.
But just say yes. Just say yes.
Okay.
You know, at first I found myself feeling really stressed and, you know, holding a lot of anxiety, like, you know, if my kids miss this semester and if I do not spend this summer tutoring them and getting them back on track, that I've just failed, you know, their education is going to be, you know, off for the rest of their lives. And then I took a deep breath and I kind of said, you know what? I think I'm going to focus this summer on just connection, really taking some slow time with my children, like your daughter, my daughter, and you know, you're lucky she's not walking by right now. She spends most of her days completely naked, roaming around, you know, our backyard or climbing in and out of a box. And I've just said, I'm just going to be present with them in this time. More crawling through boxes, more fingers and toes in the dirt. You know, if anybody drives by, you can see me running in and out of the sprinkler in the front yard. You know, is that okay? Or should I be worried about their education right now?
That is okay. I spend most of my days doing the same freaking thing.
Well, you said, how many times did you sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes?
Head,
Yes.
shoulders, knees, and toes, 30 minutes worth of head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I was like, okay, I don't have that many eyes and ears and mouths and noses. Okay, let's go on, Imani. Yesterday, Izzy's my son, he's 8, and he got a new video game. So in the middle of my meeting, I stopped and went and played Jurassic Park. He kicked my butt in it, but he just wanted me to sit with him and play. So I did that. The now almost 16-year-old, we sat and played in each, well, I don't have hair, but I played in her hair. She wanted me to show her how to do some things. So my days are now, instead of just back-to-back meetings for whatever presidents do, I try to spend as much time with my kids because they need the presence of their parents with them. They need to know that we support them in this silly little game that they want to play. Or around. And now my daughter, the youngest, she likes to play tea. So we have to sit and she pours tea into my cup. I'm not going to tell you where she got the tea from. I fake and pretend sip because I'm not drinking that stuff, but she enjoys it. So it's okay. I mean, these kids, they're learning enough now. They will never forget this moment. And we need to be gracious, extend a little grace at this point. Because this is hard on everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. So
Hi,
if
Bo.
anybody at home needed to hear that, that you are not messing up your kids right
No.
now, if you slow down and just give yourself some grace, give them some grace. Can you tell us a little bit about, you've actually, did you start it, or was it a collective that has been started of sort of younger presidents across the country who are coming together to start to do some work? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a part of a group. It was based off of the Lakin Institute for Mentored Leadership, so I did not start it. I was a member of it. It's a professional development group for presidents of color or people of color who aspire to be a president. And for those of us that have reached that point, and even those that are still going through the process, we have a little group and we meet like once a month, because the president's job is lonely. It's lonely at the top. You're never going to make anyone happy. And there are days when you just want to say something to somebody and let them know who you really are inside, but you can't say that.
You shouldn't.
Right.
Not all the time. Yeah.
Maybe once, but that needs to be like at the end of your career when you're about to retire.
Right. We can still message that professor back in the day who told you you were never going to reach president. I will be on that letter, but whatever.
He's on that list. But we meet monthly to talk about just how are we doing. And it's a good source of social emotional support. And we are discussing different ways that we can be supportive, not only in our communities, but collectively as presidents, and maybe taking a national stance on something. We haven't quite figured out what that will be, but just having their presence on Zoom with a glass of wine and just saying, hey, how's everybody doing? What's happening at your campus? Blah, 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 blah. It's been it's been therapeutic, because you can't have those levels of conversations back at home, for obvious reasons. But we are trying to work together to come up with ways that we can be more impactful as a group instead of just separately in our local communities.
Yeah. Do you see an opportunity for more teachers to be coming together to get more of that social emotional support, more principals of school, at every level of education? Are we doing a good job providing social emotional support for our educators?
I think that we can always do better. I think it's been a long time coming, but I'm going to say the good part in all this is that we don't have to get in a car to see each other to give that support. Now it's at the click of a button on your laptop, and you save so much time, effort, and energy than just doing it from the comfort of wherever you want to in your home or outside of it. I've had to come to the conclusion that I wasn't doing a good enough job with some of our employee groups at the college. So I have tried to make some intentional moves to show people that we care, because I got caught up in, oh, I've got to deal with the budget. I've got to deal with this. I got to deal with that. All the things that I've had to deal with in the operations of the college. But then you have to take a step back and understand you're not only the president, but you're the president that is supposed to be empathetic and to care and to show people that you understand what they're going through. So we have to make, as leaders, intentional moves to show people that we're not only human, but that we understand and we care, and we're here to support you however we can. So a lot of colleges and schools have affinity groups that gather. Give them the space to do that. If they need time off, give them the space to have that extra time off. Because I don't want you coming and showing up in a meeting and you've got 21 things on your mind and you say the wrong thing and then you have to go down a different path. So people need time to separate. And the thing that I have been asked a lot is, what should I be focusing on? And I tell people all the time, focus on you. Focus on your health and wellness. Focus on your well-being. All of this stuff will be here. You'll finish that project and then here comes another one. So take time for you. And I think we could do a better job collectively in education, because you can burn out easily. And it doesn't take long to do so. And you're not good to anyone if you can't function yourself.
Right. How, because I think every community college has a very rich, ethnically diverse student body and teaching staff. How were you able to support everyone through this most recent social upheaval during so many police murders? What is that role like as a president, as an educator?
So that's a tough role. I was grieving myself. Um, and a lot of times I started getting emails from folks saying, you haven't responded to this. Well, that was because I needed time to process it on my own. I remember crying when Trayvon Martin was killed and Eric Garner and all the names that came before. And then here it is, another one that's a very public, in my opinion, modern day lynching that took place, online. How do I process that as a mother of 3 beautiful Black children and married to an awesome Black man who could be mistaken any day, just, as a threat to society?
Yeah.
So I had to take some time for myself to heal so that I could address the college. I remember the first email that I sent to the college, I had tears rolling down my eyes as I was typing it. I was walking around and just typing just literally what came to my mind, and I pressed send. I said, whatever, that's what it is. Then we followed up with, we blacked out our college webpage and a Black Lives Matter. So the homepage, when you clicked on the EVCC, you saw Black Lives Matter, our statement, and then you could click to the regular campus page. And that was very impactful. We got some haters, on top of that. That's okay. You get them all the time. But I wanted to make it clear that you can't say all lives matter if Black lives didn't matter. And I want to be clear that this isn't the first time that I have made a statement about supporting people in general. The same thing, this past summer, or last summer rather, when there was an increase of ICE presence in communities, I made a very public statement about us supporting our DACA students, us supporting our immigrants of color, and immigrants in general. And, so I want to make it clear that it's not just I'm picking Black Lives Matter because I'm Black. I feel like I have to say that.
Yes.
But, I support everyone, and that's what we're supposed to do at the college. So for us and for me, I felt like we need to take a very public and bold stance on where we are as an institution. We have the 5 dimensions of equity, where we believe in providing access and equitable access to everyone at the college and respect for everyone. And that's what we're going to do. We also participated in the peaceful protest that took place in downtown Everett in early June that was put together by some awesome young people from Everett High School. It was a beautiful day to see college employees dressed in their EVCC shirts. And they sent me the cutest email saying, so Dr. Willis, is it okay if I go to this protest with an EVCC shirt on? I said, I would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
So, once I got out of my own feelings, then I could step up to be the encourager that you're supposed to be, whilst condemning the tragedy that took place. You still need to lead, and to lead with empathy, and people need to see you grieve as well. I've always had this thing where I don't cry in public, or I don't show my feelings. That's BS. Because if people don't see you as a human that cares just like they do, then how can you expect them to understand where you're coming from and to respect your leadership? So I've tried to get out of my own way with that and my own little rules that I've created over time, so that people can see that, yes, this hurts me as well, and this is how we're going to move forward together.
Yes. Wow. I'm being reminded of uh, poet Abby E. Murray. She has a newer piece where she talks about us grieving together, our collective grieving, and what that looks and feels like, and how we make space for that. Off of that, I guess I'm wondering, you know, we are starting to have more and more of a social dialogue about how we ask certain roles in our community, educator, even police officer, to play so many roles, to wear so many hats under the banner of educator. I think we're seeing now how much we ask teachers and educators to not just educate, but also be a therapist, also be managing their own biases and really looking to unpack how to be an anti-racist while standing in front of their classroom. You know, final question for today is, coming out of this, what is the support that we as a community, that I as a parent, you know, a single mom, can be providing for you as an educator to make your role more successful, to help move barriers to successful education?
We need your advocacy.
Mm.
Because as you said, educators are expected to be social workers, counselors, teachers, and we're supposed to look at ourselves and say, okay, here are the issues that I have. And it's enough to look at yourself and unpack whatever you've got going on inside, you know, sister girl, sister soldier, whatever you're dealing with that you have to come to terms with. But the problem that we have, and this is just Daria's opinion, look at the funding that our K-12 systems have in comparison to our celebrities and things of that nature. Yeah, they make their money, I get it, whatever. But we as a society don't place a lot of high regard in education, but yet we're expected to bring everybody up no matter where they started and have them at the same level. Community colleges suffer from that. We're funded at levels that, in my opinion, are a shame in comparison to some of our four-year partners and research institutions. You can look at the salary of faculty at a community college versus the four-year, or the salary of presidents or administrators, and look at what they can get versus the people who are boots on the ground. The resources that we have to provide the mental health counseling and the things that we need, we don't have nearly enough of those people because we're not appropriated at the same levels. And I'm not talking about just in Washington State, this is a national issue.
Yeah.
And if we don't have enough people advocating for what's important in society, then we're going to keep seeing that our funding levels will continue to be stripped away. Every time a new issue or pandemic or global crisis happens, the first things that we cut is what? Higher education or education in general. And then yet we're expected to have so many people with bachelor's, master's, and PhDs in 20 years. Well, you can't get there if you're cutting things like pre-K, access to pre-K and Head Start, and those are the formative years. So we need parents, we need community members, we need those who care and can see the, in my opinion, slaughter that's happening to education in general in this country.
Wow.
To not only be supportive and say, yes, we hear you, we understand you, we're going to, you know, bring you a cupcake or e-card to say thank you, but we need your voices in the political process. To go back to our governors and our president and our leaders and our legislators to say that funding is a concern. And if you want us to be successful as a society, then we have to be an educated society. So don't cut education, period. Because our children matter, our people matter, and this is the only way that we're going to help to revive ourselves and to stay at the forefront of this global economy.
Wow. Wow. There's nothing I'm going to say after that because, you know, I want to go to Dr. Daria's commencement speech so that I can get that charge at the end and move my tassel to the other side.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, for hopefully assuaging some fears that, you know, all of us parents are having about navigating this moment in time, being both interim educators. And thank you for just, you know, so many great ideas and possibilities about what the future of education could look like coming out of this, and giving us some tangible ways to answer that charge, to lend our support and our collective voice to that. Dr. Willis, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to go pour the wine, and so you and I can talk about being at home with the kids and the sort of emotional support that we just need as moms.
Yeah.
Sorry that you at home can't join us for that, but we will look forward to seeing you next week on Keeping It Real with the GSBA and Lindsay T.H. Jackson. Have a happy Thursday. Mwah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.